We are going live into the anatomy of the operation that took place on the morning of January 14th, 2026, because this is not just a raid, it is a masterclass in modern digital forensics and live data matching. The sequence begins in Annapolis Junction, Maryland, which is the heartbeat of the American intelligence industrial complex and home to the National Security Agency. Federal agents move in to arrest Aurelio Perez-Lugones, a system administrator for a government contractor who holds a top-secret security clearance. This is the first node in the data stream. When they take him into custody, they are not just looking for a confession, they are looking for the digital pulse of the crime, and they find it instantly. According to the Department of Justice filings, Perez-Lugones is actively communicating on his mobile device at the exact moment of his arrest. This is the critical definition of a live investigation. The agents secure the phone, and the screen is likely still active or easily accessible, and they see a chat window. In that chat window, they see a stream of text and images that correlates directly with classified intelligence reports found physically in his possession. The FBI affidavit confirms that Perez-Lugones had printed documents marked secret and concealed them in his lunchbox and his basement, but the physical paper is slow evidence, while the digital chat is fast evidence. The live data matching algorithm in the investigators' heads and on their forensic tools immediately links the text on the screen to the documents in the lunchbox. The content of this intelligence is specific and highly volatile. It relates to Country 1, which analysis of the geopolitical landscape and recent Department of War maneuvers suggests is Venezuela. We know from recent reports that the Trump administration has been planning a stunning military operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and asserting inherent constitutional authority to deploy forces without congressional approval. The documents in Perez-Lugones' lunchbox and on his phone likely detailed this operation or the legal memos justifying it. The live data match confirms that the person on the other end of that chat is not just a passive listener, but is receiving this specific national defense information in real time. The investigation pivots instantly from the source to the recipient. In a pre-digital era, this would take weeks of subpoenaing phone records and fighting legal battles, but in the era of live data matching, the connection is instantaneous. The contact on the phone is identified as Hannah Natanson, a reporter for The Washington Post. The FBI now has a direct line of sight. They see the classified data leaving the secure environment of the contractor's office and entering the digital device of the journalist. This is where the new legal framework under Attorney General Pam Bondi comes into play. The Department of Justice utilizes the suspect exception of the Privacy Protection Act. They argue that because Natanson is in possession of this digital data, she is currently committing the crime of unlawful retention of national defense information. This allows them to bypass the standard protocols that protect journalists and move directly to a search warrant. The live nature of the chat provides the exigency or the emergency justification. They argue that if they do not act immediately, the data on Natanson's end could be deleted or encrypted beyond recovery. This data match is what authorizes the Department of War, as they are now styling themselves, to request the raid. The agents relay this information from Maryland to the Eastern District of Virginia. They spin up a search warrant application that relies on this real-time link. The argument is simple and devastating. The source is caught red-handed transmitting data. The recipient is caught red-handed receiving it. The First Amendment shield is pierced by the Espionage Act sword. This is not about a past article. This is about a current data transfer. The target profile of Hannah Natanson is significant because she is known as the federal government whisperer who has amassed a network of over 1,100 federal sources. By hitting her while the data pipe is hot, they hope to not just recover the Venezuela documents, but to map her entire digital network. The operation culminates in the pre-dawn raid on Natanson's home in Arlington, Virginia. The agents execute the warrant, and the inventory of what they seize tells us exactly how the live data matching will continue in the lab. They take her mobile phone, they take her personal laptop and her Washington Post-issued laptop, but most critically and most invasively, they seize her Garmin smartwatch. This device is the final piece of the forensic puzzle. The Garmin watch is a biometric and geospatial logger. It records GPS data, heart rate variability, and precise timestamps of movement. The FBI forensic examiners will now perform a retrospective data match. They will take the GPS data from Perez-Lugones' car and phone and overlay it with the GPS data from the Tanson's Garmin watch. If those two blue dots ever crossed paths in a park, a coffee shop, or a parking garage, the watch will prove it. Even if they left their phones behind to avoid tracking, the watch, which often stays on the wrist, creates a digital shackle that binds them together. They will also look at the heart rate data. A spike in heart rate at a specific time can indicate stress or excitement, which can corroborate the moment a leak occurred or a sensitive meeting took place. This is pattern of life analysis. The seizure of the laptops allows them to match the document metadata. If Perez-Lugones took a screenshot of the classified Venezuela report, the digital fingerprint of that image file, including the resolution and a color profile, will be matched against the images found in Natanson's chat logs or download folder. This confirms the chain of custody from the secure government terminal to the journalist's hard drive. The Department of War rhetoric, which includes a potential $125 million rebranding effort, signals a militarized approach to this prosecution. They are treating this data leak not as a civil infraction, but as an act of information warfare. The live data match that began with a text message in Maryland has now expanded into a total forensic colonoscopy of a major American newspaper reporter's digital life. The message is clear. If you are connected to the data stream, you are part of the crime scene, and the speed of the takedown is the deterrent. The era of the protected source is over, and the era of the live forensic dragnet has begun. We have to go deeper into the data stream because the forensic match is only as valuable as the secret it uncovers, and in this case, the secret is explosive. The affidavit for Aurelio Perez-Lugones mentions Country 1, and while the court documents are redacted, the live geopolitical context blows the cover off that redaction. We are looking at Venezuela. The timeline of the leak correlates perfectly with a highly classified Office of Legal Counsel memo that asserts the president has inherent constitutional authority to deploy military forces to capture Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro without congressional approval. This is the Country 1 intelligence. The documents Perez-Lugones allegedly screen captured and printed and then sent to Hannah Natanson likely detailed the positioning of a U.S. armada around Venezuela and the legal justification for a forcible abduction on foreign soil. This is why the administration didn't just send a subpoena, they sent a raid team. They framed this not as a policy dispute, but as a direct threat to warfighters in the theater of operation. This connects directly to the massive rebranding effort we are seeing from the Pentagon, which is no longer calling itself the Department of Defense. Under an executive order signed in late 2025, they are reverting to the Department of War. This is not just a cosmetic change, it is a $125 million overhaul that involves changing every sign and every website from defense.gov to war.gov and changing the email addresses of millions of personnel. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, used this specific terminology in her statement justifying the raid, saying it was requested by the Department of War. This militarized language is crucial for the legal argument because if you are at war, then a leak is not just a crime, it is an act of aiding the enemy. The live data match between the contractor and the reporter was treated as a combat intercept. They are arguing that by receiving those screenshots, Natanson was effectively holding the battle plans for the Venezuela operation on her personal laptop. Now we have to look at the target herself, because Hannah Natanson is not just a random reporter, she is a high-value target in the information war. In December 2025, just weeks before the raid, she published a viral first-person account titled, "I Am the Post's Federal Government Whisperer," and in that piece she admitted to something that likely terrified the administration. She revealed she had built a network of 1,169 news sources. These are current and former federal employees who were feeding her real-time data on the firings and the restructuring and the chaos inside the agencies. When the FBI seized her phone and her laptops and her Garmin watch. They didn't just get the evidence against Perez-Lugones, they got the keys to that entire network of 1,100 people. This is a digital decapitation of the civil service resistance. The live data match allows them to now run a contact analysis on her entire phone book. Every federal employee who used Signal or WhatsApp or Telegram to contact her is now potentially compromised, because while the messages might be encrypted, the metadata of who she talked to and when she met them is often visible once you have the physical device unlocked. The Garmin watch adds a terrifying layer to this because it tracks physical proximity. If a source met her in a parking garage and they both had their location services on, even if they didn't text, the FBI can place them together at the exact same coordinated universal time. This raid sends a message to every single one of those 1,100 sources that they are next. It creates a chilling effect that is absolute because it proves that the reporter cannot protect you. The government is willing to use the suspect exception of the Privacy Protection Act to kick down the reporter's door to get your name. This brings us to the legal architecture that allowed this to happen, because this raid would have been impossible 2 years ago. We are living under the Bondi Doctrine now. In April 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi explicitly rescinded the Garland guidelines, which had prohibited seizing reporters' records in leak investigations. She replaced them with a policy that allows for extraordinary measures to punish leakers, and she removed the protection for journalists who receive unauthorized disclosures. This is a fundamental shift in American law, where the act of reporting on a crime is treated the same as committing the crime. They are using the legal theory that was test-driven in the Project Veritas case, where journalists were accused of trafficking in stolen goods. In this case, the stolen goods are the digital pixels of the Venezuela war plans. By framing the information itself as stolen property, they strip Natanson of her First Amendment shield and treat her as a receiver of stolen property. The reaction from the News Guild and press freedom groups has been furious, calling it a tremendous intrusion and an assault on the Constitution, but the precedent has already been set. The data has been seized, the sources have been exposed. The Department of War has established that its secrets are more valuable than the Fourth Amendment protection of a reporter's home. As we move forward, we are going to see this live data matching technique used not just for national security leaks, but potentially for any whistleblower case where the government can claim a law enforcement interest. The era of the anonymous source is dying because in a world of total digital surveillance and biometric tracking and aggressive legal warrants, anonymity is a technical impossibility. The raid on Hannah Natanson is the proof of concept that if they want to find the source, they can and they will.